So we know at the moment Boris Johnson is hanging literally by his fingertips onto the reins of power. So he's going on an all-out offensive to try and reassure as many MPs as he possibly can that he is still the guy for the job. We've seen him make promises about levelling up, which again still aren't going to come to fruition. He's even taken away more money from that pot, or should we say, Rishi Sunak has taken more money away from that pot, which adds more credence that Sunak is definitely undermining Johnson's position. And of course, a key demographic for him is obviously the Brexiteers. After all, Johnson won on the whole promise of getting Brexit done. And many of these pro-Brexit MPs are now desperate to start this radical transformation to a Singapore on the Thames. And as we've already well discussed, the idea of a London-based economy, based on a Singapore on the Thames, is complete and utter fantasy. We've already done that video about how much of a fantasy that really is. Like I say, please do go and check that out. We did that yesterday. Trust me, it's well worth a watch, but trust me, it's well worth to know that, because I can guarantee you any future special leadership election, that phrase will come up a lot. But of course, the big one, of course, is deregulation. Now, very much the more moderate Conservative Party and elements that are still, again, engaged in the parliamentary party and the non-parliamentary party are very, very much against deregulation. They understand the need for regulation and why, again, regulation should exist. But the problem is the Brexiteers are far-right, libertarian, free market fundamentalists. As far as they're concerned, the government should have absolutely no role whatsoever in regulating the markets. And according to them, there should be no regulation whatsoever. So as far as they're concerned, getting rid of as much regulation, no matter how much that regulation exists for in the first place, makes bizarre complete sense to them, even though you go on to explain this is why this regulation exists. As far as they're concerned, it shouldn't exist at all. So we're going to be seeing the, quote, benefits of Brexit paper probably be released this week as well, to try and quell them, their anger, and bring them more back into support of Boris Johnson. So we'll get into that in a bit. But before we do that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, or you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to those people who do support the channel that way. So, on with the article. This comes from the Financial Times with the title of The Benefits of Brexit. The paper set to set out plans for future deregulation. Boris Johnson will next week attempt to try and reassure the very restive Eurosceptic Tory MPs that he is serious about a post-Brexit programme of deregulation. 2 years after Brexit, Britain broke ties with the EU, Johnson will now publish a 100-page Benefits of Brexit, the paper highlighting the plans for future deregulation, including areas such as gene editing of crops, artificial intelligence and data, as well as he hopes this will try and shore up his leadership. But his critics are frustrated by the slow pace of reform, while the pro-Europeans claim that is just proof that the promise of the post-Brexit regulatory bonfire was always a right-wing pipe dream. Over the past few weeks, Johnson has urged ministers to come up with incentives to conclude with the January 31st anniversary of full Brexit. But some ideas have even failed to make the cut. Senior Whitehall insiders also said to have hurried to try and bring together a very convincing list of incentives from across government departments to try and highlight the opportunities of Brexit that has been a struggle. Among other ideas considered for inclusion was a ban on pavement parking, which has long been a demand for road safety and disability campaigners, but it was later dropped by the Department for Transport from the paper. And again, something we could have done when we were inside the EU. The plan will include the measures that baffled Whitehall officials, since the parking ban could have been enacted, as we said here, while the UK was an EU member. London banned pavement parking in 1974, and the Scottish Parliament approved a ban back in 2019. Some government officials say that Lord Frost, the former Brexit minister, is partly to blame for the slow progress and was more focused on other areas such as the negotiation with the Northern Ireland Protocol. I'd agree that's certainly a pressing issue. But Frost has hinted in his resignation letter that Johnson last month is that he was to blame for other things for failing to engage sufficiently with the deregulation agenda, saying, I hope we will move as fast as possible where we need to get to. A lightly regulated, low tax entrepreneurial economy at the cutting edge of modern science and economic change, he wrote. Ian Duncan Smith, the former Tory leader, produced a deregulation report for Johnson administrations last April, which included at least 100 ideas, such as bringing back imperial measurements. Again, a complete fantasy, of course, from this. The report by the Task Force for Innovation, Growth and Regulatory Reform said that Britain should whittle away EU data protection laws, again, very bad idea, and the system for clinical trials for drugs, again, very bad idea, and give pension funds greater freedom to invest in fast-growing tech companies. Again, quite a bad idea. For the past 9 months, Duncan Smith has campaigned for the government to adopt these recommendations and has become increasingly concerned at the apparent delay. These are vital forms that deliver the benefits of Brexit to the British people, he told the FT. None of those things that we've just mentioned, those 3 things above, actually deliver a proper benefit. EU data protection law basically protects your data. So the government stripping that away, don't think that's really interest of the, shall we say, the British people. Same for getting rid of drug clinical trials. I don't think that's in the best interest for the British people. Same for pension funds. Again, pension funds being risky with people's potential, future pension. What if this tech company collapses or just disappears? Then what happens? Again, none of those proposals there, as we say, really great benefits to the British people. And of course, last September, Frost announced a second phase of UK regulatory reform after Brexit. But he attracted scorn in some quarters when the lead item on his list was to restore the crown symbol to pint glasses. The slow pace of progress has concerned very senior Brexiteers. This week, Sir William Cash, the chair of the European Security Committee, wrote to Johnson asking for a progress report on the plans announced last September to systematically review EU laws that were automatically carried over onto the UK statute book after Brexit, noting that 5 months have passed without apparent action. The Treasury is also said to be delivering long-promised reforms to the Solvency II regulations to ease capital requirements, giving insurers far more flexibility to invest in UK infrastructure and businesses. Meanwhile, Nadine Dorries, the Culture Secretary, is grappling with how to devise a new data regime fit for the 21st century. That would be, quote, simultaneously be equivalent to the EU rules allowing market access while allowing Britain to exploit new markets. Tech industry insiders said they have been told to expect nothing new in the document beyond existing reviews into post-Brexit data privacy regulations and artificial intelligence. Like I say, GDPR, as it's called, is pretty good. Yeah, now, does it have its problems? Yes, of course, it has its problems. No law is ever 100% perfect and, fit for purpose. But GDPR does its job quite well. And again, you should want your data to be protected. And us not being in, by the way, in this data protection, by the way, considering that we are a service-based economy, is pretty important that we protect people's data, especially if they're from Europe. And remember, we've told you this before, time and time again, if you're a service provider, where's your main customer base? It's in Europe. So you've got to follow their regulations. If you want to work in Europe, if Nadine Dorries says, oh, look, we're making all these changes, doesn't matter. If you've got a customer in the EU, you've got to follow EU data protection regulations. Doesn't matter if our regulations change or not, because if you misuse data, then guess what? That company is going to get that fine, and so are you. And then bang goes any chance of you working with any other European companies. And again, much of our service sector works with the EU. And we've said this time and time before, just last week. All our data and trade and business is tied up doing business in Europe. Why? Because it's our closest market. That's not going to change post-Brexit. And slowly over time, people are going to realize that and start to catch on. Why are we doing so badly after this? Well, look, it's because of Brexit. Won't take long. It really will not take long. And as we've said before, the economic realities will bring us back to being in the EU. It's just a matter of time. And like I say, the pro-EU campaign ain't going anywhere. And if anything, it is far, far stronger and has far, far better and bigger voices than, shall we say, the Eurosceptics have ever had. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, thank you very much to those people who do support the channel that way. With the Patreon page down below, and of course the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.